I can only be as I am. Inspired by this quote here as well from Nikola Tesla. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So, as we've been discussing recently, I and I am are one. I and the Father are one. Articulated very precisely in the second chapter of Lessons in Truth by Harriet Emily Cady, Statement of Being. Why I would like to relate this over to the conversation of vibrating correctly is the fact that you are actually now one with the highest vibration. Hence the title of the mind map, I can only be as I am. Exodus 3:14, God reveals God's name. And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. So what I did was I took a number of passages from the book and consolidated into three key areas in relation to thinking in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency, to contribute pointing to the realization that we are right now at the highest vibration. Number one, you are one with the highest vibration. Number two, intuition brings you to the highest vibration. And number three, remain in the flow to the highest vibration. So, God's name is I am. We can say, I relax into knowing that I am by being still. As stated in the Bible as well, be still and know that I am. We experientially feel blissful. Bliss. Sat Chit Ananda. Truth, consciousness, bliss. We experience reality. Reality is bliss. Being one with the highest vibration. I relax into knowing that I am the highest vibration, which is experientially actualized as wonderful, harmonious relationships, flow-based journey to actualizing your business prosperity, wonderful life experiences, which are true, authentic, and individualized to you. I like how Adi Shankara said it one time. He said, as gold purified in a furnace loses its impurities and achieves its own true nature, the mind gets rid of the impurities, of the attributes of delusion, attachment, and purity through meditation and attains reality. The reality is you are one with the highest vibration. Sat Chit Ananda, truth, consciousness, bliss. So she articulates it very precisely. She says, one drop of water taken from the ocean is just as perfect ocean water as the whole great body. The constituent elements of water are exactly the same, and they are combined in precisely the same ratio or perfect relation to each other, whether we consider one drop, a pailful, a barrelful, or the entire ocean out of which the lesser quantities are taken. Each is complete in itself. So there's only one source of being. I am, as again stated in Exodus 3:14, and God said unto Moses, I am that I am, fundamental reality from which all individuals, everything arises from. She says this source is the living fountain of all good, be it life, love, wisdom, power, the giver of all good gifts. This source and you are connected. Every moment of your existence, you have the power to draw on the source for all of good you are, or ever will be capable of desiring. So by being still, by practicing stillness, which is in the moment, if the individual is about to become reactive, which is apparent in their thoughts, in their emotional relatability to appearances, physical appearances, or the appearances of mental phenomena in mind. In that moment, be still. Abide as I am. And the individual experientially relaxes. As we say, I relax into knowing that I am. And they realize that, we could say, their vibration increases. Some like to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. It is felt experientially. And then we could say we start to think differently. I say we think accurately in relation to appearances. For example, I've noticed this in personal relationships. The individual said something to me, and I was about to react to what they said. In that moment, it was crystal clear that awareness was being brought to a belief that was identified with. An opportunity for mind purification. To experientially realize that, what she mentioned here. So by, in the moment, allowing the emotions to release, being still for a moment, I was able to think clearly and accurately from the premise of loving, fulfilling relationship. And then I knew what to say. And the relationship continued to go down the thread of harmonious relationship. I had a conversation the other day with a client regarding acquiring clients. He mentioned how through the repetition, someone that he knows who in the earlier stages would, let's say, run away from what they perceived of as a challenging conversation, would continue to engage in those conversations, applying what we're discussing here practically, acknowledging that they are already one with the highest vibration. If the prospect would say something in which before they would interpret as them not being good enough, reactivity, which would reveal identification to an untrue belief, an opportunity for mind purification, they would be still and they would release that identification. And they would experientially feel it, blissful in relationship with that person, blissful in relationship with that experience. And they would know what to say. And the relationship would move forward harmoniously. What they realized in that moment, they realized that I am taking care of everything for them. So they released the unnecessary, illusory, controlling-based beliefs. They released identification. They have detached from the untrue beliefs in relation to the vision. Very specific. They purified the subconscious mind. They detached from the untrue beliefs in relation to those initiatives. They still continued on the journey to actualizing that success, yet they detached from specifically the untrue beliefs by being still in relation to the appearances on the journey to actualizing the vision. The way that I mentioned that I credit to being more aware of what I think, what I emotionally relate to appearances, is the Vipassana meditation, which I do for 20 minutes a day since 2008. Over the course, I found it easier to be aware of what I relate to appearances. And if I found that I was identified with an illusory belief, an untrue belief, I would release that identification to realize that I am one with the highest vibration. And the appearances would change. That degree of vibration, we could say, that I was identified with, that resulted in the appearances corresponding the degree that I was identified with. And so here's another wonderful insight, which I experienced over the years, and I've spoken to many who have also experienced this as well. Having known that I am at the highest vibration, I realized that I seem to be then brought to the highest vibration via intuition. Point number 2. Intuition brings you to the highest vibration. I have made a lot of intuitive moves in my life. And every time I made those intuitive moves, I actually found, interestingly, that those intuitive moves resulted in the release of identification. The release of identification to the untrue beliefs. Intuition said, go move to this country. Go make this bold move. And I listened to it. I took that step. It reminds me a lot of the book U Squared by Price Pritchett. Also, a lot of times it's sold with another book called The Quantum Leap Strategy by Price Pritchett. An intuitive move changes everything. There were times in my life where I was sitting around waiting for what step to take, overthinking and further digging myself in identification to remain in that particular state. That particular state would play out as theater that would appear to keep me in that state, where I would, you could say, convince myself that more overthinking would help me, when what was helpful was being still, and intuition would arise. take this step. And there were times where it appeared challenging to take that step. Nothing wrong with that. As we discuss, the cave I fear to enter may hold the treasure that I seek, and I know it. I can feel it, so I take that step. That's how I started my IT business back in 2009. Thoughts would arise from untrue beliefs, of doubt at times, and would play out as others echoing those doubts, information echoing those doubts. By being still in those moments, wisdom and intelligence was received within, and I took the step. As she says here, God is wisdom and intelligence. All the wisdom and intelligence that we see in the universe is God, is wisdom projected through a visible form. To educate, from adukare, to lead forth, never means to force into from the outside, but always means to draw out from within something already existing there. So the challenge then, in relation to taking that step, was a result of identification to illusory beliefs that was generating resistance. By being still, I released that identification. Exactly like how my client was speaking about when he was discussing his experiences with this individual and their experiences with learning sales. You see, the individual may be identified with untrue beliefs in relation to living how they truly desire to live. And they may create all kinds of theories and stories as to why they don't do what they genuinely desire to do. Yet intuition reveals what to do. And they find, as they remain still and release that identification, that they naturally go on to do what they genuinely desire to do. As they're guided from within. I like how Florence Scovel Shinn said it one time. Prayer is you telephoning to God, and intuition is God telephoning to you. H. Emily Cady says, God as infinite wisdom lies within every human being, only waiting to be led forth into manifestation. This is true education. So, one of the aspects I find for being at the highest vibration or vibrating correctly is listening to intuition, which guides the way. Not to be confused with untrue beliefs. By being still, the individual can discern. Intuition guides accurate thinking. I actually consider accurate thinking and intuition as one. I actually experience it as one. Part of the reconciliation with respect to I and I am being one. You already being with the highest vibration. She says, heretofore we have sought knowledge and help from outside sources, not knowing that the source of all knowledge, the very spirit of truth, is lying latent within each one of us, waiting to be called on to teach us the truth about all things, most marvelous of teachers, and everywhere present without money or price. This is very helpful because if the individual is identified with illusory, untrue beliefs, they may generate appearances, information, environments, people echoing their thoughts, to validate the confirmation bias of those untrue beliefs, in which they appear to go around circles, doing the same thing again and again and again, and the results not changing. Yet they look for more validation, confirmation of that information, subconsciously, to, you could say, unknowingly keep them at that vibration. Bringing awareness to this recurrence is a result of being still. I am aware of what I relate to appearances. And the individual listens to themselves and trusts themselves. They think for themselves. And they make the moves. And it may be different than what people or information around them seems to suggest, which is generated as a result of the untrue beliefs. Once they release identification to those untrue beliefs, those illusions no longer appear. And they find it easier to listen to their intuition. Number 3, which I find to be the simplest way to acknowledge that you are one with the highest vibration, and thus are truly vibrating correctly beyond the individual identification. Knowing that I am, you release that identification. The simplest experiential way that I found, which is an integrated approach, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, is remain in the flow. Relax into the flow. Make flow a priority. As we discussed in Tuesday's video, anandamide is released. Neurotransmitter anandamide is released. And as it binds to the receptors in the endocannabinoid system, the individual experiences bliss. They also release identification to dichotomous thinking, black and white thinking, rigid beliefs. They experience fluidity of mind, and they flow into the realization that they are one with the highest vibration, and thus they know certainly beyond identification to the false identity construct, which is made up of beliefs, that they are vibrating correctly, one with God. I and the Father are one. As she says here, God is perfect love and infinite power. God is the total of these, the total of all good, whether manifested or unexpressed. God is. The individual exists out of, to stand forth. The individual stands forth out of God, and thus is already one with the highest vibration. Stillness brings us to this realization and experiential actualization of it. Because what generates the illusions of the individual not vibrating correctly? What generates all the illusions in the first place? The identification to untrue beliefs. So we purify that by being still. So in relation to I and I am, she articulates this very precisely. Some of the best articulations that I've ever heard, which is interesting because This book has been around since 1894. As the individual releases the identification and appears to, let's say, go to higher vibrations, so it appears, information that was always there now appears to reflect the vibration. So this was always there. Yet the articulation showed up after I was stilled to a particular degree, as a confirmation of truth. So we could say lessons in truth, confirmations in truth. She says, we all have direct access through the Father in us, the central I of our being, to the great whole of life, love, wisdom, power, which is God. I love how she articulates it precisely. Love, power. So, as I mentioned, there is no doubt that I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Knowing that I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Having experientially realized that I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, abundance, prosperity. It is crystal clear as to what is an untrue belief in mind. And if it is untrue, release that identification. She says, what we now want to know is how to receive more from the fountainhead and to make more and more of God manifest in our daily life. The individual is a threefold being made up of spirit, soul, and body. Spirit, our innermost real being, the absolute part of us, the I of us, has never changed. It's true. It has never changed. I remain the same what appears 5 years ago, 10 years ago, in this environment, that environment. I remain the same. I witness it all. I may be identified with particular beliefs in the subconscious mind that are untrue, which I have the opportunity to release that identification by being still and knowing that I am. Right now, you are aware of what you think in relation to this conversation. You are aware of what you emotionally relate to this conversation. You are aware of, the I is aware of, the environment, the thoughts of in relation to whatever. Current experiences, relationships, you are aware of. That I remains the same. She says, the absolute part of us, the I of us, has never changed. Though our thoughts and our circumstances may have changed hundreds of times, this part of us is the standing forth of God into visibility. It is the Father in us. So as she said, the individual exists out of, stands forth out of God. The I and I am are one. I and the Father are one. She says this part of us is the standing forth of God into visibility. It is the Father in us, because there's no real separation between I and I am. The only separation is, we can say, illusions of separation, untrue beliefs that generate the illusions of separation between I and the Father. As a result of identification to illusory beliefs, I don't believe the individual walks around trying to confuse themselves, overthinking unnecessarily, mental restlessness, unintentionally, when the solution is being still. Be still. And you automatically remain in the flow, being the conduit of divine expression, generating heaven on earth based experiences in increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive, as harmonious relationships, as others appear to also be in those harmonious relationships with you. Watch my flow-based life series. I'll link in the description to it. This is why I consolidate everything that I teach on this channel as a result of over 20 years of applying this information to the word flow. Being in flow on the journey to actualizing the vision, flow day to day, takes care of everything. It is easier to purify the mind. It happens automatically, actually, while you're in flow. So in summary, 3 considerations when it comes to vibrating correctly. Number 1, you are already at the highest vibration. You are one with the highest vibration. Number 2, intuition brings you to the highest vibration. The question is the individual listening to or trusting intuition, or we could say confusing intuition with untrue beliefs, which it is crystal clear. Intuition is crystal clear through the practice of meditation. And we also spoke about in Tuesday's video, the living meditation, living life as a meditation. I'll link in the description to it. And to summarize it all, remain in the flow, relax into the flow, be into the flow, be as the flow. Realize true nature is in harmony with all. As she said in the beginning, 1 drop of water taken from the ocean is just as perfect ocean water as the whole great body. So each drop is part of the entire ocean, yet it is experientially felt as the entire ocean during stillness, which purifies the mind to be one with all, and thus is experienced that way, oneness with all. Practically, as loving, harmonious relationships, a flow-based journey to actualizing the vision, harmonious relationships to energy in motion, which are emotions, harmonious relationship with thoughts, harmonious relationship with behaviors, because all of that ideally flows from knowing, certainly, through stillness, that you are already vibrating correctly. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You can say, I realize I vibrate correctly as I remain as I am, knowing that I am bliss and thus experiencing bliss wherever I am, as wherever I appear to be, in relationship with people, environments, circumstance, information. I experientially realize it is easy to remain in my flow as I remain still in blissful relationship with appearances. This increases more so each moment of each day. As a result, I can only be as I am, the highest vibration. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.